Congratulations to you. I'm going to start off with this question because I've always found your music to be cinematic. I've seen Angels and Airwaves live, and every time I go to a show of yours, I feel like I'm immersed in a story. I'm taken on a journey. And then when I see you as a filmmaker, obviously I feel the same way. And I'm curious for you, when you look at the way you tell stories as a songwriter versus as a director, I know technically it's different, and you're dealing with different instruments and cameras versus guitars and things like that. But how do you see the difference between those two elements of storytelling when you tell a story in a song versus a movie?
It's really the same, like I write songs without a guitar a lot of times in my head because it's kind of like Tetris, you think Tetris and all the blocks fit together. I can kind of sense that on both mediums, whether it's film or music. It really boils down to how do you build the scene, make something dramatically build to a point and then bring someone back, and that's how Angels and Airwaves always was. I had a lot of experience with Angels and Airwaves doing it. But honestly, it whether you're writing a story or filming a story or making a song. I mean, I really like music that does that. Blink does a lot of that too, where the way we start a song and the way we like have some type of a crescendo or something. We're a little better at it now than we were in the past, but that's something I clued into early on that resonated with me. There's so many different ways to do it, but yeah, it's something that I'm always thinking about.
But the trailer for this, obviously you're using Aliens Exist, which is a really cool thing. But what's interesting to me is the person you were when you wrote that and the person that you are now, how those lyrics hit you differently. And then emotionally, when you hear those lyrics set to your own footage, your own movie, I'm just wondering what that's like for you.
Well, it's crazy. When I wrote the song, it was more about a kid full of wonder.
Right.
And now I feel so much more kind of enlightened, with so many of these themes and the consequences of them. And so like bringing it together is really interesting. I've been on this quest since I was in like 7th grade, and to be kind of in the center of so much of it with the government and all this stuff that's coming out, whatever. That really makes me wonder, am I living in the Matrix? Am I just like living a program someone put in or what? But it's been a lifelong journey. It wasn't my original idea to put that song in there because I sound so young in it, and I sound like I'm 10 years old singing it. But the guy that scored the trailer, he did it, and he's like, "This is what I want to do," and I was like, "I don't know," And then he put in there, I heard it, I was like, "That's pretty rad. It's haunting," So much of this movie is to inspire wonder, kind of put people back in the shoes that I was wearing when I was like in high school and out of high school, just really just searching for like the meaning of what the fuck is all this stuff out here. I don't believe we're supposed to just work 9 to 5 and go to malls on weekends and have one vacation a year and then like be in bad relationships or whatever. Like I go, there's gotta be something more to this. And so I'm hoping this movie is like, a conversation starter for young people and others to kind of go, whoa, there might be more out there.
I was sitting at my desk at work the other day. I had just seen you guys in DC a couple months ago. It was one of the best shows I'd seen in a long time. Probably it's my favorite you guys have ever sounded. I've seen you guys live so many times, but just watching you and Mark and Trav, it was just like a really emotional thing. And then I hear one more time. And I just had to ask you, like, what's it been like to be back out with the guys, but also that particular song to you? And those lyrics are obviously so personal. Your self-titled Blink album is my favorite album y'all ever did because of just the way the emotions of it. It felt very like movie related, and those letters that were written and like the person talking about them. But what did it mean to you to be back out with the guys, and what does that song mean to you?
Really healing, like Blink is a kind of a phenomenon. Like, a lot of bands you know of and you like their songs, you kind of like their history. Blink, I always feel like we're like the guys next door, like a lot of people kind of knew more about us individually and our stories in the band. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It just seemed like we're kind of, I feel like our story as a band is a little bit more present than a lot of rock bands. And so having a song like that and having it like kind of really just show our fans and show the world that we're really thankful for what we got, but we're human, like just like anyone else. And we've been through a lot of shit. I think a lot of people can relate, because we all get older and we look back and go, shit, I remember my heartbreak. I remember going to school. I remember one of my parents dying. I remember, all these things. Like, I think it was a good moment for us to kind of really relate on a very human level, and bring people more into our story, which is essentially with punk rock music and stuff like that. Like, you always wanted to know where these guys came from because we're not shredders, it's not like we're Led Zeppelin up there just doing crazy solos and shit. We go, oh, they're the best guitar player ever. It's a vehicle for emotion. It's a vehicle for kind of eternal youth with our band. So I'm just appreciative that people like are feeling some of those feelings.
One thing I loved about the film particularly was your use of music. A lot of movies that you see these days are either soundtrack heavy or score heavy. And then you see someone like a Tarantino who will go like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, go completely soundtrack heavy. And then you go into Hateful Eight with Ennio Morricone. And it's like, it's a completely different vibe, but you seem to balance both score and soundtrack. I think there's like 3 Angels and Airwaves songs in here. I think there's, you know, and then you hear a lot of the score as well. As a musician, when you look at your scope of your movie and you're like dividing it out into how you're going to put your themes and your music in, how do you approach it musically and knowing when you're going to drop soundtrack and score?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I had to understand kind of what the tone of the movie was. And so it's kind of got this adventure comedy kind of sci-fi thing going. So I had to find music that would fit that kind of, you don't want to go way too dark and serious and then someone says a dick joke, you know. So finding that kind of whimsical nature of the music was important. And so really there's a very John Williams, old Spielberg kind of vibe that fit really well, because you watch these old Indiana Jones movies, you know, it's kind of fun, but it's also an adventure. So that worked really well. When we did the movie too, it was before the Blink reunion and all that kind of stuff. In a different world, it would be fun to have some Blink songs in there as well. Probably wouldn't have the budget for it, you know, like with Angels, I just have more control over it, you know, I could do that. But I had a lot of fun. Alon Rubin scored it, who plays drums for Angels and Airwaves. So I would be able to work on melodies and then he would just take it and build these crazy scores out of it. And I think it comes off pretty rad. Like I was actually really surprised, because there's moments we're doing this, like, this might kind of suck, you know, like we got to fucking figure this shit out. I can't embarrass myself, you know, but I think everyone just did like everyone that worked on the film just worked on it so passionately, you know, so like we were able to punch above our weight class, I think.
Dallas has a line in the film, which I remember, I wrote it down right after he said it. He goes, just by using our intention, how we choose to feel, I believe it can really change things. That's a really fascinating way to look at life and kind of our intentions and how we do things. What does that line mean to you, just on a personal level?
Well, the more you look into kind of the tip of the spear with the studies on consciousness, we're realizing that consciousness doesn't exist within the mind. Consciousness is a permeating force. It's literally like Star Wars. It's like the Force, you know, and it can be used for good or bad. So your body and your brain, your entire being is what they call a transducer of your environment. So you're like an antenna and you're tuned into a radio station, and whatever you choose to think, or whatever station you choose to tune into is going to come through you and emanate out, and physical matter is created for an experience. So literally whatever you feel and think, quantum physics is now discovering that your physical reality is based on your thoughts. And in the movie, it's very much kind of got this backstory of, we have to learn that, you know, fear and happiness and love and all these different things that we choose to dwell on is what's going to make your life experience. It's not that you're a product of your reality. The reality is a product of your thoughts. So and that has to do a lot with UFO. I mean, when you get into the whole UFO research side of things, it's really strange. You will end up there and you'll start to realize why things are coming here and what's important about humanity. And it literally is the soul. And that's why all the ancient religions are talking about these things that come here and they're interested in our souls, you know, and we're really special. Once we learn this, we'll stop kind of creating bad physical reality, I guess.
Last thing I'll ask you is this. I love when, I think it's in Dallas's room particularly, we see a Sex Pistols poster and then like a Punk is Not Dead poster. And it just brought me back to my childhood. I had movie posters on my walls growing up. If I walked into your childhood bedroom, what was on your walls? Like, what do you remember having on your walls and ceiling?
Skateboarding. It was all skateboarding. Like I had I painted Thrasher across my entire wall, Santa Monica Airlines, an old skate company. And I probably had a few movie posters, but I wouldn't remember, but mostly like it would have been all skateboarding and stuff for sure.